Hello, welcome to another episode of Talk Turkey.
Hi, Nevşin. We are certainly living in interesting times, right?
Exactly, you've chosen an interesting headline for our show this time. Very creative.
Yes, I think it's a saying perfectly explaining Turkey's situation regarding Russia.
Well, yeah, exactly. Turkey is in a rock and a hard place. Well, the thing is, lately, I think this is what Mr. Erdogan has been saying from the beginning. Turkey's, like, he again emphasized the other day when he was talking, he said Turkey can neither lose Russia nor Ukraine. So Turkey has, relations with both of these countries and interests in both of these countries. But it is going to get harder to keep the balance for Turkey, I think, in the forthcoming days. What's your opinion? What do you think?
Yeah, Turkey is certainly in a difficult position. On the one hand, Turkey has close ties with Ukraine. On the other hand, there is an increased dependency on Russia, especially this has increased in the last few years. One point is clear. Turkey clearly supports the territorial integrity of Ukraine. And Turkey has never shied away from stating this. It was also the case in the case of invasion of Crimea as well. We should also see that there are some cultural, historical ties as well, especially with the Crimean Tatars. There are many Crimean Tatars living in Turkey. Actually, they were exiled by Soviets. But even then, Turkey didn't join, actually, the West for the sanctions against Russia. And it's happening again. Probably Turkey won't be joining any of the sanctions coming from Europe or United States. But Turkey's key position has not changed regarding the territorial integrity of Ukraine. I think there are also close relations. And then, first of all, there's also, even a military cooperation between Turkey and Ukraine. Turkey even sold military equipment to Ukraine, including those famous Turkish drones. Actually, a few weeks ago, on 3rd of February, there was even an agreement for the co-production of those drones in Turkey. And according to Wall Street Journal, they reported that 2 days ago, Ukraine used Turkish drones very effectively, actually, to hit Russian targets. And apparently, the chief of Ukrainian Air Force even called these drones life-giving from the perspective of Ukrainian Air Force. That's an interesting angle. And then the second thing maybe Turkey can do or trying to do is connected to this, again, a famous Montreux Convention. Probably we should talk about this too. Actually, Zelensky declared this on Saturday, 2 days earlier than Turkey, that Turkey will be implementing the convention. There is a famous tweet. Maybe we can show it to the viewers if possible. So here he talked about this, and Turkey said that the final decision is not there, but we are working on this. And then finally, Turkey decided that Turkey will be implementing this. It's a convention actually from 1936, regulating the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits in Turkey, basically connecting Mediterranean and Black Sea. And Turkey has decided to declare the conflict a war. And this allows Turkey to implement certain provisions, even though the statements so far are a bit vague. It's not very clear which provisions Turkey will be actually implementing, because there are different ways of interpreting things. As far as I understand, for now, it is closed for Russian warships, but also for other countries, including non-Black Sea countries and NATO, US as well.
I jumped in, but because Hulusi Akar, the defense minister, he actually mentioned, and he said basically, Montreux Convention, he underlined the articles 19, 20, 21. 19 and 20, it underlines the passage of foreign ships. 21 is about the ships of the countries that are neighboring the Black Sea, basically. Mm-hmm. But, there's this exception that, for example, Russia wants to pass one of the warships. They can say this warship is based in the Black Sea, so in that case, they would have the right to pass. But I mean, let's be realistic. Do you think would Turkey ever be willing to stop a Russian warship entering the straits? I mean, look at the power balance in a sense. I don't think Turkey would be willing to piss off Russia that much.
Well, I think first of all, it's a symbolic move. In any case, Russian Navy is already quite strong in Black Sea, but this may complicate things if the war continues longer than Russia expects, actually. And I haven't seen a statement from Turkey about blocking, but Guardian reported yesterday something interesting. It's to be confirmed, I guess. Apparently, at least 4 Russian ships actually were waiting on Turkey's decision in the Mediterranean to cross the Black Sea. And as far as I know, there's no attempt from Russian side today to cross the straits. So we'll see how complicated this is going to be. But this is, of course, very decisive because then Turkey would be taking, in a way, a side. I mean, even if Turkey says that I'm not taking sides, it will be banned for all warships. This will have direct consequences, obviously, for Russia, not for the others.
There is this inconsistency with the Turkish government's stance. In a sense, I mean, in the beginning, Mr. Erdogan started criticizing NATO and EU for not doing enough. He said, they're just talk, they're not doing anything. He was emphasizing that. In the beginning, exactly. I mean, nobody thought sanctions would go that far, this far. Look at this. I mean, Russia is being isolated from the world in every sense. Even Netflix, they're lifting Russian movies, from their system and everything. The Russian central bank is kicked out of SWIFT system. Nobody expected that much. Neither did Mr. Erdogan, I think. And Mr. Erdogan said, well, NATO is all talk, EU is all talk, they're not doing anything. And this was the opinion in Turkish public opinion. Turks thought, NATO is doing nothing, EU is doing nothing. But then sanctions started, basically raining on Russia. And Mr. Erdogan still says, they're all talk and everything. But there's an inconsistency because, okay, I mean, he might still think, NATO EU is doing nothing. But then what is Turkey doing? Turkey's emphasizing that, yes, even Mr. Erdogan said Russia stole Crimea from Ukraine. This was the sentence he used a couple weeks ago. But then what is Turkey doing? Actually, in that sense, Turkey is all talk, but nothing, basically, because there's a lot of sanctions and Turkey is not a part of these sanctions. I mean, Turkey is not sanctioning any of the Russian entities. I mean, suddenly this will affect Turkey and Turkish firms that are doing business with Russia, obviously. I mean, without the SWIFT system, how are they going to do this trade? It'll be very problematic, but Turkey is not, taking any steps in that sense. So there's an inconsistency, I'd say.
Well, I think Turkey was in a comfortable position for a long time because what Turkey is claiming now, it was true to a certain extent that the EU was not doing enough, NATO was not doing enough, and the Germany was there. So it was putting Turkey in a comfortable position. But now I guess Turkey doesn't know what to do because there are new dynamics, but Turkey was not expecting this dynamics because we also see a increased dependency on Russia. And not only about economy. I mean, there are a number of different elements about this dependency. And probably to understand Turkey's position, we need to understand the main dynamics as well of this dependency, starting with energy, of course. I mean, similar to Germany, there is a dependency in terms of natural gas. Turkey is still a #1 supplier in Turkey. As you can see on the graphics, I mean, it has changed a lot. I mean, Turkey increased the share of Azerbaijan and LNG in the last few years. So Russian share is down to around 34% from 58% in 2013. But this is still a considerable amount. And then we have trade. First of all, the trade volume between Turkey and Russia is almost 35 billion. But it's mainly about Russia exporting to Turkey, 29 billion, and mostly energy, but not only. And there as well, we have a visual about it. there is also a dependency in terms of wheat, which is a very basic, actually, agricultural product. Turkey has a high level of dependency to wheat from Russia and Ukraine. So this can be surprising for our viewers because, I mean, traditionally Turkey has always been an agriculture country, so have been always producing agricultural products and even exporting them. But I think in the last few years, we also seen mistakes in agricultural policies as well. And it was certainly cheaper to buy it from Ukraine and Russia. But now we realize that it's not only about the price, but also it creates this level of strategic dependency. This is probably the number 2 issue in terms of dependency. And then there's construction sector. As you know, Turkish construction sector is very big. They're all around the world in different construction businesses, and they also have actually many investments and contracts in Russia. And then tourism is like a never-ending list, but Russian tourists were number 1 in 2021 with 4.7 million actually tourists. And this was number 1, followed by Germans, and then 2 million Ukrainians. And considering that Turkey was really hoping a record number of tourists and revenues in 2022, this will create a major issue too. I mean, Turkey was expecting 9 million tourists from Russia and Ukraine this year. I don't know to what extent this will be possible. I mean, even if Turkey can keep ties with good ties with Russia. I don't know if you want to continue because the list is long. I mean, we should still talk about S-400s, nuclear energy, and the dependency just continues. I mean, Turkey bought those, again, infamous S-400 air defense missile systems from Russia, and Turkey doesn't know actually what to do with them. I mean, as far as I know, we are not really activating them, but we cannot really get rid of them either. And then it's also one of the major problems Turkey is facing with the US. I mean, Turkey is out of the F-35 program just because of these Russian missiles, actually. And then just maybe I mentioned it and finalized, there's also nuclear energy dimension. Turkey is currently, Russia is currently building Turkey's first nuclear power plant in Akkuyu, which is in south of Turkey. And it's a big Russian investment. It will provide 10% of Turkey's electricity. And the first phase is expected to be operational, actually, in 2023. It's symbolic because it's the 100th anniversary of the Republic, but maybe even more importantly, it's also an election year. So I don't know to what extent Turkey can say stop to Russia and then give that contract to a Western country or Japan. I don't know.
Yeah, there are contracts. I think you cannot just, throw away a contract anyways. Well, the thing is, I mean, yeah, Turkey's put all eggs in one basket, which is the Russian basket, as you said. You're depending on Russian tourists. You're getting gas from Russia. You're having your nuclear plant being built by Russia. So like all eggs in one bag. But well, the problem is this government has always had this, how would I call it? Maybe we can call it reactionary foreign policy. So like something happens and Turkey reacts immensely and very emotionally. This is what's been happening, especially after this coup d'etat, 15th of July coup attempt. Turkey has seen the West and the United States as being one of the collaborators of the coup plotters, basically. And then Turkey started shifting really fast, from the West to the East. Even there was a talk of Turkey trying to join the Shanghai Five, all this crazy talk. And then with this reactionary policy, Turkey basically depended on Russia a lot. Now Turkey is going to pay the price. You mentioned tourism, so I was just checking the numbers. Last year in 2021, I mean, including all this pandemic and this and that. So in total, 19% of tourists to Turkey came from Russia, 8% from Ukraine, which is huge. This has been on the rise. In 2019, only 16% of tourists were from Russia, This time it's 19%, so we are seeing an increase. This is going to decrease dramatically, which will mean a huge burden on Turkish tourism, basically. And when we check the revenue, basically, 30% of Turkish tourism revenue is from both Russia and Ukraine. 30%. So this gives you an idea. So it might add up to $9 billion. This is around $9 billion Turkish tourism is going to lose, which will not be a good news for Mr. Erdogan. Because we mentioned also in our former video, latest Turkish economy, you know, we have this new Turkish economic program. It kind of depended a lot on the tourists that are going to come to Turkey. They were going to bring dollars and foreign currency, which would help the Turkish government keep, you know, dollar in such a in a certain level, basically. So, you know, this is also, since tourism is going to be affected negatively, this will affect the Turkish new economic program also. So this will have a huge effect on Turkey, whichever side Turkey is on. And I think Turkey will not have the luxury to keep this whatever balancing position anymore. As you see, we're heading to a different world, like a post Cold War new world, you know. So Turkey is gonna eventually have to pick a side. It seems to me like that. I don't know what you think, but
I mean, more than that, I mean, despite this dependency, also generally the relations between Turkey and Russia are quite complex too. I mean, these two countries are not friends; they are actually traditionally competitors. And when we see many foreign policy matters, we don't really actually see common interests between them. There are conflicting interests in Caucasus, Black Sea, Balkans, Syria, Middle East, Cyprus. Two countries are always on the different sides of the conflicts. Their positions are very different than each other. So, and Russia has always been a security threat for Turkey too. It was also one of the reasons behind Turkey's joining the NATO, actually, in 50s. I mean, that was the main threat. So that's why I think the level of relations is rather as a result of the AKP's foreign policy approach to balance the tension with the West, rather than a very strategic choice. But in any case, I don't think it's sustainable. I mean, and there's no long term anyway in Turkish-Russian relations. And also these developments, as you said very correctly, I mean, making things much more complicated for Turkey, because it's we have arrived at a time, I think, where Turkey needs to make a very clear choice between the West and Russia and China as well. But I'm not sure if government understands this, or if government has a plan B to deal with this issue. I mean, they're, I think, doing their best already in the last 1 year to turn back to West, improve ties with the US, especially after Biden was elected. They tried to normalize relations with the EU. They tried to improve ties with Israel, even UAE and Egypt. But this is more about the consequences of realpolitik, pragmatism, and economic issues in Turkey. So it's not very easy for AKP. However, this can also be the beginning of the process, because we have elections next year. And if the opposition comes to power, we may also see some fundamental changes in the sense.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say. I mean, does the opposition understand the situation is what I'm also wondering, you know. Well, I mean, Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu, the head of the opposition, I mean, there's an opposition bloc now, and the main party is CHP, although they're underlining all parties are represented equally within this bloc. You know, they keep emphasizing that. That's important, but still, you know, the biggest voter share belongs to CHP. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu emphasizes the importance of NATO and EU for Turkey, and for, you know, in their vision, in their basically policies. He's emphasizing that, you know, that Turkey is a NATO country and should remain so. He keeps saying that. There is that, but I don't know. I mean, the voters of the opposition are, you know, are maybe they think a little different than Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu, especially a chunk of CHP voters, I would say.
Well, yeah, and generally, I think the opposition is sending a bit mixed signals. I mean, on the one hand, what you said is true. I mean, all main opposition parties, they seem to have a clear position, positive approach towards NATO, EU, US. But their position towards Russia is not very clear. I mean, even nowadays they say, okay, we want peace, we don't want war. I mean, but they don't even mention who is responsible for this war or who is against peace. So I don't see really the opposition parties even accusing or targeting Russia, but they are rather using this actually to criticize AKP and AKP's foreign policy, which is fine, but their line against Russia, I think, is still quite blurred. And also some parts of the society, far left, but not only, we see still some pro-Putin actually approach, very surprisingly, which also actually shows that the Russian propaganda has been working very effectively in Turkey. I mean, EU has banned recently Russia Today and Sputnik. They are still operational in Turkey. They've been operational in Turkey for a long time. And there are also many different opinion makers, politicians, artists. They are very clearly taking a pro-Russian line, and they are just promoting the Russian propaganda in Turkey. So this is also something I think we should be a bit concerned about. There's also a famous case of Group Yorum. I don't know if you have a copy of the tweet. I mean, this is a far left music band, okay? I mean, and they've been accusing Turkey since 1980s. They have always been complaining about authoritarian policies, this and that. And somehow they are supporting Putin. And they are not only supporting Putin in the middle of the war. They were in Moscow on 25th of February for a concert. And then they were even praising Russia and calling Moscow the homeland of socialism. I mean, one may say these people are just confused because, I mean, there's not Russia of, I don't know, 1970, but this is 2022. And we talk about a capitalist, imperialist, and even worse than that, very actually wild and crony capitalist Russia. But I mean, it is same in Europe as well, in the Western Europe as well. So many far left groups, somehow they have this love for Putin and Russia. I really have difficulty to understand their point, to be honest.
At some point, there were in Germany, people were talking about Putin Verstehers, you know, the ones who understand Putin. Well, yeah, in Turkey, we have Putin apologists, especially like interestingly. But what I'm seeing is, for example, I am doing sometimes these polls on my YouTube channel. We are doing Vox Populi on the street and asking about this war. From that, actually, we're seeing in the Turkish public, the sentiment, especially about this matter, is very anti-Putin. They see this as an occupation, whatnot. You know, they stand with Ukrainian people. However, some TV channels that have been on the opposition side, well, you know, the ones who know Turkey a little bit, they know the situation. But Turkish conventional media is divided into two, as the pro-government and the pro-opposition. And pro-opposition TV channels have been Putin apologists, not even Putin verstehers, I'd say. In the beginning of the war, they were like, well, yeah, Putin is fighting neo-Nazis. We have been seeing all these Russian official narrative on these TV channels. It's very interesting. And also what's very interesting is, you know, most of these ex-generals of Turkish army, you know, they are now as strategists or they are like commentators on these TV channels. They're very pro-Putin. That's interesting because most of these people have been to NATO schools. They have, you know, trained with the American soldiers, fellow NATO soldiers. But this pro-Putinism and pro-Russia stance, you know, among them is really, it's striking. I don't know why. Probably there are, you know, many reasons that we can maybe talk in another video. But it's very striking. But what has been happening is, like, in the beginning, these TV channels were like Putin apologists, but then there's a backfire from the Turkish public, I'd say. There is this chunk of people, you know, I'd say more old guard, type of like Kemalist old guard or far left. They're kind of on that side. They're Putin apologists, but like simple people more on the center left, center right. or center, liberal people, they have, there was this backlash. And also I'm just observing a little shift also on these TV channels. Maybe that's somewhat positive. But then on the other hand, for example, I mean, I find this a little, YouTube banned Russia Today and Sputnik from YouTube. I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of such steps, to be honest, or EU banning Sputnik and Russia Today. I mean, yeah, I understand they say that that's propaganda, that's not news, but don't you think that's going a little too far in terms of, free speech?
I mean, the issue is even more than propaganda. I think those channels were even in some countries, especially in Baltic countries with the Russian minority. They were even promoting directly, indirectly, like violence, civil war, civil disobedience. And by promoting lies that you will also end up like in gas chambers, etc. It's time to act now. So I think they crossed the red line. That's a bit the problem. Propaganda is something else, but I think calling for indirectly at least violence is something else. Probably that was the issue, but it is also an issue. I mean, discussed a lot in Europe. I mean, some people really say that yes, that's an issue of freedom of speech, but this is all about the part of the discussion about what is the line of the freedom of speech when you cross the line, actually. But I mean, going back to Turkey, probably at least, I mean, it's a positive sign that the majority of those people, I mean, the public opinion, center left, center right liberals, they constitute the majority of people. So there is still this a bit like old school left elite who have always been a bit skeptical about US, NATO, etc. And they are not really connected with the realities of this world anymore. I mean, their mind is still functioning like in 80s, 70s, 60s. This is an issue, certainly, because even though they're in minority, their voice is quite strong because they are the ones writing, publishing, speaking on TVs. But otherwise, it also shows very clearly that they are not only disconnected with the realities of the world, but they are also disconnected with the realities of the street in Turkey as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Well, we've been seeing some journalists working for Sputnik. Twitter labeled them as official, like as a Russia state media. So people have been talking about this on Turkish social media a little bit, in terms of that's one of the hot topics. Well, yeah, whatever happens is going to affect Turkey immensely. So everybody in Turkey, both the public and the politicians, are watching the situation closely.
We'll be back with more interesting topics, I'm sure, in 2 weeks.
Exactly. See ya.